Merry Christmas, everybody. David here, and I'm coming to you from rainy San Diego. And I have an exciting story for you. Now, 2020 was a tough year for obvious reasons. We used to win a lot, and now we've just been losing.
We don't win anymore.
Lost the World Series to the Dodgers. The family cat joined the local food chain, and we lost Bond, Bilbo, and Brett to old age. We've been losing, and we are tired of losing. It's time to start winning.
Anybody we do business with beats us.
I'm on the record for It's a Boy. And let's see if we can make hindsight year end on a high. Now that the Amazon projects are finished, that's Bruce and Genevieve, I've got to set my sights on something old, something new, something borrowed, something green. So if you haven't heard, green is the new black. And if you're like me, which I am, there's always a soft spot in your heart this Christmas for a little bit of green. Now in this case, I'm talking British racing green. The best. Swedish racing green, another story for another time. So maybe I have been spending too much time around Italians with their triple carburetor inline 6 engines, and maybe I have been saving a couple bucks on hair product by switching to used motor oil. But you miss 100% of the shots you don't take, and every shot you take with a Volvo seems to last forever. Now you let that sink in. Maybe a big inline 6 is what's been missing in my life, and I don't really have room to put a project car in LA, but if there's anything I've learned from life is just like making an illegal U-turn from the right, where there's a will, there's a lane. So, I've got an announcement.
Chapstick, that's what I should have put on. I can't believe it, I'm shocked.
It's a Volvo. A 164. That's right, it's a boy for them, and it's a Volvo for me, specifically a 164. All of this to say, I'm pretty bad at Christmas shopping. My love language is more acts of service. But this Christmas, I got very good at shopping for myself, and I bought a 1969 Volvo 164. What do you think of my Christmas gift? Soren picked it up yesterday. Nice. Well, I'm gonna make a lot of videos on this, and my goal is to have it kind of up and running so I can drive it back to LA sometime in January. So I'll be there as long as it takes. Here we go. Happy New Year. Now, even though I bought it sight unseen, I'm very excited to work on this thing. I have actually purchased more in parts than the total cost of the car, and it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be a good learning experience. I've learned a lot about this car. I wanna share some of that information with you guys. In the late 60s, Volvo wanted to dip their clogs in the luxury car market. So they took their new sedan in the 140 series, that's the 144, and modified it into a new creation, the 164. Now, if we know anything about Volvo nomenclature, 1 for the 1 Series, 6 for 6-cylinder, 4 for 4 doors, that's right, available from 1969 to 1975, in place of the 2-liter B20 engine, which was used in the rest of the Volvo cars family. They developed a new, larger inline 6 with 2 carburetors feeding 3 liters of displacement. They designated this as the B30 engine. This thing is beautiful. Their ads are actually pretty great too, featuring slogans like, "A civilized car for an uncivilized world." And one of my favorites is the chauffeur who switches seats at the gate. There's not a lot out there as far as content on YouTube or the internet for the 164 series, which is available only as a sedan. It looks like some people really love this car, or at least they tend to talk it up because they want it to be more competitive in the luxury class, but they, or their parents in the 60s, couldn't afford an older Mercedes or Rolls-Royce. This is where Volvo really has its appeal to the desire for a luxury car. Without the premium in cost or maintenance of a Mercedes-Benz, a Rolls-Royce, a Lincoln, a Jaguar of the time. Once they drew you in with air conditioning and leather seats at a fraction of that cost, you'd become a customer for life once you experience the robustness, the durability, and the reliability of Volvo. It's Volvo for life, no doubt. To me, the 164 looks a lot more like a Jag with the quad headlights and the still round fenders around the headlights, whereas the 140 series was securely squared off. Volvo was beginning its transition into the boxy era. This shares so much with the 140 series, in fact. The 164 really only differs in the front. The hood and the fenders are a few centimeters longer, which accommodate that longer inline 6, and it's funny because the overall car length is the same as the 144, bumper to bumper. The rear end's nearly identical, it seems. Volvo took a very sensible approach on building. What is luxury in the 1960s, you might ask? Well, air conditioning, power-assisted steering, good handling, leather seats with heaters, reading lights in the back, bolstered bucket-like rear seats versus just a bench, and simulated wood grain. Some of these things we really took for granted, and some of them really just became dated in the 1970s. The wood grain, for example, Volvo would get rid of later. Check out this ad where Volvo threw some shade on the tackiness of their competitors. 7 luxury features thoughtfully left off the Volvo 164. You can't create a luxury car by tacking on luxury features. One of the things that makes the Volvo 164 truly elegant is a total absence of tackiness. No opera windows, no fancy interior decor group. Volvo's bucket seats were designed by an orthopedic specialist, not an interior decorator. No 400 cubic inch V8. Volvo's 3-liter 6 has enough go for any well-balanced person. No fake wood veneer. Well, the first couple years sure had it, but then they got rid of that. No status hood ornament. Now, I'll admit, I wish we had one of these, but to Volvo, the driver doesn't require constant reassurance, nor does he need to be reminded of what he's driving. Unlike other cars today, the 164 isn't a copy of anything. Honestly, I think they missed some points on this one, but I digest. No decaled on pinstriping, and no long options list. Instead, the 164 provides a long standards list: air conditioning, automatic transmission, power-assisted steering, power front windows, 4-wheel power disc brakes, and steel-belted radial white walls. Gotta say, I'm glad the white walls stuck around just a little bit longer. As for the B30 inline-6 engine, when equipped with the dual Zenith Stromberg 175 CD2 SE carburetors, the B30A made around 145 horsepower, 163 pound-feet of torque. That is pretty much more than adequate for this car. The 0 to 60 time was mid-9-second range, which was around 3 seconds faster than the B20-equipped 140s in Volvo's current lineup, and about the same as the 1800E, using the early Bosch D Jetronic fuel injection. And the same as the first Volvo 240 turbos, using the B21 FT engine in the US, which was a relatively low compression, low boost, and non-intercooled turbo engine, but still pretty cool to compare that we had a similar 0 to 60 as Volvo's turbo. Later year fuel-injected Volvo 164s had a 0 to 60 in 8.7 seconds, with almost 160 horsepower when equipped with a manual transmission. If you have an auto, your 0 to 60 time, it's listed as, what does it say here? It just says, eventually. The 4-speed manual transmission in the 164 is called the M400. It's also available with overdrive in the M410 configuration. This has the J-type overdrive found in the rest of the Volvo fleet, and that's what I'm using in Bruce and Genevieve. It was also available with a luxurious for the time 3-speed automatic Borg-Warner 35 transmission. That's the transmission where hopes and dreams go in the input shaft and crushing disappointment comes out the rear. But only 2 pedals. Considering that the majority of videos on YouTube are from the UK, this kind of tells me that the Volvo was a really good selling car for that market, or even if it wasn't a hot seller, maybe just these old Volvos have outlasted through to the next generation of enthusiasts with cameras. The next big market I found online was Australia. Oz, Great Britain, and Germany all got the limited edition TE version in 1974. This had a few extras like rear seat reading lights, a 4-speaker 8-track player, headlight washers with the little wiper arms, rear headrests, and a fully carpeted trunk. Now we know that it started in 1969, so there through 1971 they were carbureted, and then starting in 1972, Volvo switched to fuel injection using the same Bosch D Jetronic system that was used in the other cars. Also by 1972, the door handles became flush on the doors and a center console became standard. These doors pretty much identical to the 140s. Then the following year, the whale tail bumpers showed up with a redesign, a facelift, if you will, of the 1973 to 1975. Back in college, or maybe a little bit after that, I actually ran across one of these at a junkyard, and while you can't save a car once it's at the junkyard, you can save some of the important bits and pieces. So I actually pulled off the grills and admired it, then put it up on eBay. In fact, most of these 164s that I've seen while shopping have fully intact, undamaged front ends. I don't know what it is. Maybe the Volvo driver was very sensible in their approach on the road, or these cars just absorbed everything in the bumpers and the grills were largely untouched. Or at least the people who they were paying into the luxury bracket were just a little more careful with their asset. Following the whale tail bumpers, the styling charm of the 60s was pretty much all but gone. And in the interest of safety, they moved the fuel tank a little bit closer to the rear axle versus under the trunk. And then the 164 saw the resurgence of metallic colors. I think Volvo experimented with these in the past and had some quality control issues, but metallics were back. And while I don't think there's much connection, it might be good to research and look into the British Leyland strikes of the 1970s that might have affected sales of a Swedish car versus those that were made in England, like the Jags. The reviewers say that these cars are surprisingly quiet, solid in their build quality, and competent handlers on the road. I just cannot wait to find out for myself. The final years, as we saw in that ad earlier, talked about things like electronic ignition, new seats, electric windows in the front, different badges, and different suspension setups. So not much really changed over the years. A 164 is very recognizable from start to finish in its 6-year production line. By 1975, Volvo already had a relationship with Peugeot and Renault for the PRV engine, and they had started the 240 series, which was to become probably their most popular throughout the years. And so naturally the 164 would evolve into the 264, which is another story for another time. And hopefully in about 2 weeks' time, we're going to make a cross-country trip with this thing. Can it do it? We'll find out. Failure is not an option. Life is too short to drive boring cars. These are the things that I keep repeating. These are the mantras that are in my head. All the best for the Christmas holiday. I will see you in a few days with a close-up look of the car once I'm finally in town. Remember that video that you guys were over for Christmas and I brought home a crappy old car? It's about 2 years ago. It was 2018, Christmas.
Oh, you bought it in Mexico?
Yes, yeah, so it's there.
Okay.
So
cool.
Soren picked it up yesterday.
What? It's frigid.
Yes! It's not dog food.
It's just the blanket. What's happening?